Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum. Pasito.
Hello, this is Chef Willy. Welcome to a classic modern reviews. Seven Samurai, the Magnificent Seven. What did they have in common? Influence.
Recently last year, there was a Western film that came out known as The Magnificent Seven, a modern remake from its classic 1960 version. Both had a ton of fun action and a well-developed character-driven story. Maybe just this one.
But every time I hear them in a conversation, whether if it's a classic or modern version, there's another one that is always brought up, none other than Seven Samurai.
Directed by one of the most influential directors of all time, Akira Kurosawa, not only was it a huge hit in Japan, but it brought so much influence, resulting in Hollywood westernizing his films so the audience could be familiar with his stories, leading to homages, remakes,
and of course copyrights, lawsuits, and all that fun stuff.
So, what is so influential about this 3.5 long hour film? As much as it broke barriers in the US, what makes it a contender to be alongside with the great ones? How did this inspire filmmakers and movies? Was it the characters, the camera angles? What brought the attention from the Western world to copy something that some might view as perfect?
Well, as somebody wants to know what's so good about these classics, I'm gonna take a look at Seven Samurai and compare it to the recent Magnificent Seven. How do they differ and how are they similar? Now keep in mind, this is gonna be tricky to do, but I'll do my best. And also this is gonna have spoiler alerts.
From the time I've been here, I've noticed a few elements to what makes a movie stand through the test of time. One of those being what I mentioned earlier, time, the story, and respect. If the story reflects on the times it came out and it's good, it will be viewed as a respected piece of work through generations. A great film can be about something more than just a story that serves as an escapism from reality. It's about confronting the present issues of the world by mixing fiction and told as a parable and use of analogies, almost like a puzzle. If you can discover their messages and meanings that are not spoon-fed to us the viewer, it'll be even more rewarding.
So let's begin with the first question. How did history shape Seven Samurai?
Seven Samurai came out 2 years after the American occupation was over in Japan. Samurai movies wouldn't have been allowed in those days for their military propaganda. After the Second World War, Japan was becoming more westernized and shifting its cultural identity to democracy. Now, Kurosawa being a fan of Western movies and literature, this would open the doors to do his style of Western films in Japan, but still rooted in the Japanese culture. Even though he wasn't well received by the people for his Western views, it didn't stop him to make the movies he wanted that it got the attention of the US for how similar their styles looked to Hollywood's.
Now related to its influential theme, what is it that caught the attention of the West?
Every time you hear Kurosawa's name, you immediately hear the other word associated with him, influence. They just go hand to hand with each other, you can't separate them, and it's not hard to see why. Back in the US in the 50s, the Western genre were the blockbusters that ruled their box office. Kurosawa's movies were from the genre Hidaijiki, a drama period of Japan that took place during this timeline, but still had some Western elements in it, like setting up in the desert or having cowboy-like face-ups, and so on and so forth. But Kurosawa set the stage to a new level of blockbusters that would later influence others to come out. In fact, both films have had their own share to inspire other projects. Seven Samurai influenced The Magnificent Seven, Magnificent Seven influenced parodies and a modern remake, but even Kurosawa had his inspiration from John Ford's Western movies in the 50s, so it's pretty much a circle of inspiring and influencing others to create that same spark in Kurosawa's work. Famous directors such as Steven Spielberg or Francis Ford Coppola were inspired by his work, as most directors did when they were westernizing his stories. His breakthrough directorial cut, Rashomon, was later remade in the US as The Outrage. One of Clint Eastwood's western films, A Fistful of Dollars, comes directly from Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. Both having the same story, just replace the sword with guns and they're identical. Even George Lucas is a fan of Kurosawa. He has mentioned in the past that his Star Wars movies had a major inspiration from his movies, much closer to The Hidden Fortress about two peasants that help a warrior rescue a princess from an evil empire. Huh, does that sound familiar? There is a reference to the look of Darth Vader inspired by the villain from Seven Samurai. The lightsaber fights were based from anything samurai related to Kurosawa. Other movies have tried to recreate his work, whether if it was from B-movies, American movies, foreign movies, or Japan's own. Even Pixar's own Bugs Life was based from Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, and it goes on and on. It's very clear that if it wasn't for Kurosawa, we probably wouldn't have seen so many of our already classic films that intrigued us, entertained us, and influenced us.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
But hey, you can't influence anyone if your story sucks, so let's take a look at both movie stories. How are they structured?
Both films have the exact identical story. A group of bandits invades and oppresses a poor village of farmers until they get fed up with their mistreatment, so they hire samurais that can teach them how to fight and help them get rid of the bandits from their land. The Magnificent Seven is no different from the same plot, both classic and modern one, only set it up in the West instead of Japan and replace the samurais with gunslingers, and there you have it!
I mean, this story is so universal, you can set it up anywhere with any group. It can have the Super 7, the Pearly 7, or the 7 Midgets. It can have anyone you want, and that's the fun of this story.
It may seem like a simple story, but what makes it work is the human interaction. It is structured to know the pain and frustration that the farmers go through, as well as in Magnificent Seven. We get to know very lengthily each of the samurai's backstories as we understand the complexity of why they're helping them. While in Magnificent Seven, the group helps the village mostly out of money or revenge against the villain, the samurais do it out of honor without receiving no more than just food and a thank you. Now, a little history to know how they would interact with them. Back in those days, samurais were a higher social class that wouldn't have matched well with the lower class. They lived by the core to serve their emperor. If their master died, they would become what they're all known in the movie, Ronin, meaning they were samurais with no masters, and this would have been considered as shameful. So it adds a new layer to what the heroes are seeking. It's a story of how two different social groups, farmers and samurais, work together to prevail against their obstacles and obtain retribution, or revenge, or honor, even after facing death. Now, both films deal with the human bond in different ways. In Magnificent Seven, you see them interact with one another and with the people. I may buy them as friends, but I don't buy they have a friendship with the village, which it's pretty much non-existent. The only time we see them interact with them is during training, but they don't seem to encourage or empower them to hide their weaknesses.
I'm looking at a line of dead men.
You gotta hate what you're firing at! Get some gravel in your craw! God damn sons of bitches!
Statistically speaking, they should have hit something.
In Seven Samurai, you feel the instant connection they have. You see the samurais bonding and building their friendship with each other.
田んぼの田の字、つまり百姓たち、この村だな。
この丸は
俺たちだ。
なんだよ、6つしかねえじゃねえか。俺はのけもんか。
いや、この三角が菊千代様だ。
You see them interact with the farmers and likewise creating that fellowship, whether if it's during training, feeding them, entertaining them, or having a romance.
Naughty, naughty.
They receive encouragement, but they're also disciplined when acting foolishly. They grow united as one, samurais and farmers, which carries more drama when one of the members of the team falls to his death during battle. I may have felt some connection in the modern one, but that's mostly because of the adrenaline I got from the action and not as much because I cared about them. Maybe it could be argued that they were toughing them up for battle, but the heart to what makes this story great is the bonding between two different social classes as one. Even the classic understood how important the human emotion was for this story.
Now, for a story to work, they need to have some interesting characters and some star power names to play them. And both films got what they needed. Let's take a look at the characters.
Both films have a nice well cast of star power, whether if it's from Japan or from Hollywood. But if I had to pick which is better, I would go with Seven Samurai. I would even say they're better than the classic Magnificent Seven. In the modern remake, I remember their faces, but not their personalities. I mean, this guy likes to pray, I guess?
I'll say a prayer for you. You know, a little prayer.
This other guy has inner demons, which is not made clear what are those. And he's a native, and I already forgot what he was doing here. With Seven Samurai, you immediately distinguish who they are and what are their personalities. You have the wise teacher, the young unexperienced student, the quiet warrior, and the goofball that tries to prove himself. These are just a few personalities that you can notice from. The acting comes out very universal. Even if you don't know Japanese, you understand the emotion it's supposed to show for how overly expressive they are with their face and body movement. You know when it's settled and peaceful, you know when there's comedy relief, and you know when tragedy has struck down. Now, let's take a look at Denzel Washington and Takashi Shimura as the leaders of the group. In Magnificent Seven, he's intimidating and you can buy him as a leader with a tragic backstory, but he doesn't grasp my full attention. Though he is not bad in the role, he's not someone I would learn anything valuable. He seems like another Samuel Jackson that's gonna burst something cool and chilling to say before killing you.
You put him up against some real men that know what they're doing. You sure you don't want my gun?
Pick it up.
Pick it up!
With Master Shimada, on the other hand, is a million times more interesting. He's settled and peaceful, but he can be a tough warrior. He's a teacher that seeks no fame or glory. All he lives and breathes by is the samurai code of honor and wisdom.
まあ聞きなさい。わしは別に特別の人間じゃない。ただ合戦には随分出たが、それもみんな負け戦ばかりでな。
He doesn't care what others think of him, and his humble approach of being a warrior is what inspires the other samurais to join him in the cause.
わしにも百姓の苦しさはわかる。お主が百姓のために立った気持ちもわからんではないが、わしはどちらかというと、お主の人柄に惹かれてついてまいるのでな。
Whenever I look at him, I say, yeah, this is who I want to grow up to be when I'm old. He doesn't fight for money, but because it's the right thing to do. Now let's take a look at the main supporting lead. Chris Pratt has his fun moments, but he just seems like the generic badass. Not a bad one, but there's nothing grasping about him. Except for how much he tries to make that southern accent sound natural.
You are Goodnight Robichaux, after all.
Jesus wept. Wow, Bill, is that you? You look like shit. Cheek resting against the stomach.
I'll be working on my accent next Guardian Galaxy.
In Samurai, the one who steals the show is Kikuchiyu, who is a ton of fun. I just love every time he pops out. He's so enjoyable and over the top, but they also made him complex and interesting. He wants to prove he's a samurai, but lacks honor and discipline. He's reckless and hates the farmers for being weak, but then later reveals in his tragic backstory how he used to be a farmer, which ironically serves as a bridge between the farmers and samurais to make their bond even much stronger. Something I felt in the original Magnificent Seven got right, and the newer one was missing. If I could say the weakest part of Samurai were the villains. We don't know who they are, or where do they come from, or why are they attacking. all we know is that they're invaders. We don't have a personal or emotional connection with them, as they might fit in Kurosawa's historical message and context, which we'll get into later. The villain in the original has more depth to it. In the new one, he's played out more as a one-dimensional bad guy. He only wants land and often knows he's a villain, so might as well have fun with it.
Capitalism with God. So you're standing not only in the way of progress and capital, you're standing in the way of God!
Again, these characters are not bad. They have their moments of charm and fun, but the characters from Seven Samurai seem more influential, more relatable, and more realistic. And since this is a 3.5 long hour film, you get to be more emotionally invested with these characters, both samurai and farmers. Everyone is important, and no one is left in the background, just like I felt the farmers in the new remake were. Sorry Chris, I love you in Guardians of the Galaxy, but Seven Samurai has the better characters.
Wow, Bill, is that you? You look like shit.
Wow Chris, is that your accent? You sound like shit.
But hey, what's the point of having samurai swinging their swords or cowboys shooting their guns if there ain't no action?
Before I mention the action, I just gotta say, I love the look of both films. They both have plenty of atmosphere and they set up nicely the world they live in. On top of having gorgeous landscapes in their movies, they look gigantic. They're just beautifully shot, capturing how massive both stories are. So, going back to the action, how do they differentiate? In Magnificent Seven, it is very old school western. It sets up the tension before all hell breaks loose by tricking us how the villain seems like he has the upper hand until the hero shoots first and the formula repeats again. Villain upper hand, hero shoots first. Villain upper hand, hero shoots first. Villain upper hand, hero shoots first. The action on Seven Samurai is set more realistically. During every sword fight, they don't glamorize it with choreographic moves that seem like if they're dancing or having these over-the-top, unrealistic, flippy jumping moves. They show you what a real sword fight looks like. An elegant duel of skills, patience, and psychology, depending solely on one move. One mistake that you make and you're dead. It doesn't get into the actual battle until the last hour, which sets up where's it gonna take place in such detail. So by the time the battle begins in the village, you feel the drama for how this place that you grew to know like a home later becomes a war zone. Much like if you saw another setting place that you grew up watching for so long and it's suddenly been destroyed. The final battle in Magnificent Seven is intense and it is a lot of fun. But I didn't feel anything after it was over, other than just enjoying the action. It's not bad to enjoy some action once in a while, but it just blew away from my mind afterwards. The action in Seven Samurai left a bigger impression. There is nothing fun out of it. It is violent, it's ugly, it's dirty, it's clumsy, it's unpleasantly gruesome. You feel every stabbing and how much it hurts, showing how violence is not as glorious as we often believe it to be.
But another thing that concerned me related to the action in the movie was the use of slow motion.
We've gotten used to seeing slow motion in action films, oftenly during a battle scene that makes it look more epic and more cool. However, in here, they don't look as epic or cool. So what is the purpose of slow motion? Well, the main use of it is to capture a moment and emphasize how important it is. It doesn't always need to be an action scene, it could be anything. In Seven Samurai, when they use slow motion, it's done after the bad guy gets killed, not when they make the final punch. It focuses on the aftermath of the action, showing how violence has severe consequences. It's impactful, but not in a good way, showing how high the stakes were for the bandits and the heroes and how they all have something to lose in this battle. It emphasizes how impactful the violence is rather than glorify the action itself like we're now accustomed to.
Jeez, now that I think about it, the Avengers kinda sucks. Hey, shut up! You know it's true, goddammit.
Blow me! So like I said, the action in Magnificent Seven is fun, but Seven Samurai shows the true nature of violence. Adding the tension and drama in a gigantic scope gives it an unpleasant but epic closeness to reality.
And finally, I got to ask, with all their history and all their influence, do they have a political statement?
When I first saw Seven Samurai, I thought to myself, there's gotta be something more to it than just the action. There has to be something that spoke deeply to the people about its time period. And surprisingly, both films deal with the same subject of diversity in their own different ways. Seven Samurai is about the diversity of social classes. Magnificent Seven deals with diversity of races, in which the group is composed of a black man, Caucasians, Mexican, Asian, a native, even having a strong female lead that hires the gunslingers, in comparison from both original movies being men.
Hey, I guess Disney's not the only one opening up to ethnicities.
It doesn't try to be accurate history, it just wants to be a fun modern retake on the 1960 classic, and have a solid theme of diverse ethnicities but not shoved in our throats. They only mention it one time and never again. Seven Samurai could play it out as Kurosawa's point of view on the Second World War, mashed up with the history of the 16th century as a parallel to how emperors oppressed their people for social class division, along with how their government left them in poverty in the 1940s after the war. The opening scene when the farmers cried out for their misery almost fits perfectly the context of those days as well as in Kurosawa's days. But also adds the mythos of the samurai, creating an epic blockbuster drama that could also serve as an allegory of his present time. The bandits could represent their government mistreating them that time. The samurai could represent the good Japanese soldiers fighting against this oppression. And the farmers could be the people. I would even go too far to say the bandits might have first represented the US Army, since they were foreigners too in their land and they were not well received until later. I mean, this is just all speculation, and I just thought it would be an interesting point of view to share. Now, with Japan changing their values, Kurosawa brought those samurai values in his story not only to reflect and remember the ancient identity of Japan, but to break those barriers that divide us as social groups. How there shouldn't be farmers and samurais, there should be a social team effort. How they shouldn't be rich or poor, but a coalition of helping each other. And also helps how he grew up in a samurai family descendants, understanding their values and showing respect to their ideals in the movie, but not necessarily glorifying them as a social class. As much as samurais were warriors bounded in honor, they were also mercenaries, following their master's bidding, even if it meant oppressing and killing the peasants. For that, they were not welcomed by the lower class for that social barrier in their way. How Kurosawa responds to the war is not by being patriotic about it, rather he takes the humble approach, taking responsibility on the war and blaming it on themselves. An example is, again, when Kikuchiyu reveals he was a farmer, but also downplays them, parentheses, the Japanese people, as weak and deceitful murderers, but only because samurais, parentheses, the Japanese army, made them this way. It is mixed with political reality, with fiction, also adding its national ideals of honor, how to break those social barriers that diversify us. He lets us know more about these fundamentals and how it surprisingly ends in this film. While in every hero story, we often expect them to receive gratitude and the reward in the end, in Magnificent Seven, the heroes get what expected. They receive a nice send-off and appreciation from the village. Okay, not bad at all. In Seven Samurai, they get none of that! Once all the bandits are dead, the farmers go back to their old ways, celebrating and singing in their victory, while the samurais are left bittering for what this battle cost them. Now the farmers were safe, and the heroes became disposable. There is no gratitude or an attempt to comfort their pain or a nice send-off to welcome them back anytime they want. All they receive is being disregarded and ignored as it is summed up in this final line of the film.
今度もまた負け戦だったな。勝ったのはあの百姓たちだ。わしたちではない。
So after all their sacrifice, after all the fellowships they made, and all the losses they suffered from, they meant nothing to the people because of that social division. Even the young samurai in love doesn't get the girl in the end. They won the battle, but they did not win back their honor or respect of the people. What a tragic and yet refreshing way to end the story even back then. When was the last time you saw a hero not being appreciated in the end? This film is about honor, the very deep fundamental ideals of Japan represented in this movie. In comparison to what makes an American film great when their national ideals are based on patriotism, the American dream, how they stand for good and justice, this film is about working within ourselves to gain our own self-respect, which is a much deeper message that stays with you longer. While some can be about opening to diversity, or being the hero so that everyone can see it, this is about building our own characters first, making the right choices. Even if there's no praise from anyone, it's a refreshing perspective on what makes a movie great and influential. A reminder that everything we do, paint, gymnastics, or make videos on YouTube, might have started as influence from somewhere else. It's being self-aware of our own strengths and wear them as a badge of honor.
With all that said, even though I'm not as much familiar with Japanese films, I can easily say this is the best one I have seen so far.
Everything from the angles, the shadows, the action, the violence, the human element, everything looks and feels important. It's important to the Japanese cinema as a historical and cultural identity. It sets the solid ground for future blockbuster movies for the West that is no wonder how it inspired filmmakers and movies. There is something for everyone that can grasp on and enjoy the music, the gigantic scope it has, the acting, as well as the poetic atmosphere it has with the wind and rain. Many films and directors have tried to recreate the same work from Kurosawa. While some have come close to surpassing it, it is hard to strike lightning twice and get the same result. What else can I say? It's funny, it's dramatic, and it comes close to being perfect. I give this one a 9.5 out of 10 stars.
But hey, since this is also a Magnificent 7 video, I should definitely ask, how does it stand alone in comparison?
Their biggest disadvantage was following up to raise the bar from the 1960 classic and the juggernaut that Samurai helped make. That is extremely difficult. Still, they tried to recreate the Western feel in it with some fun action and enjoyable moments, which in that case it pays off very well. However, if there's one thing they actually did great, is to remind us that influence can come from anywhere, from any place, from any time. I was gonna give it a 6, but screw it. I'm giving it what it says in the title, 7 out of 10 stars.
So, what were your thoughts on these movies? Have you seen them? Have you not seen them? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Are you familiar with Kurosawa's movies? Or what do you thought of the Magnificent 7? Is the classic one better? Did you like the modern one better? I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. You can leave your comments down below. Like, subscribe, and what will be some movies you'd like me to review later? Well guys, tune in next time because when I get back, I'll be comparing Sunset Boulevard and Birdman. So for now, that's it for today. Ciao.
Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.